In our headlines on this Monday, February 2nd, here in South Korea. The local stock market and the local currency lose tremendous ground today in response to uncertainty over the future course of monetary policies by the US Federal Reserve as it looks ahead to a leadership transition. Meanwhile, South Korea's exports expand close to 34% on year in January to post its fastest pace of growth in 4.5 years as demand for AI service continues to drive up chip sales. And Golden from K-pop Demon Hunters wins Best Song written for visual media at the early ceremony of the 68th Grammy Awards to give K-pop its first ever Grammy victory. News of the Trump administration's nomination of the next Federal Reserve chair appears to be fueling, that is, a fresh sense of uncertainty in financial markets worldwide, and markets here in South Korea are no exception. Both the local bourse and the local currency surrendered much ground today. Our Park Chun-han reports.
South Korea's benchmark KOSPI saw a drop of over 5% on Monday amid heavy selling by foreign and institutional investors. As a result, the index fell below the 5,000 mark at the close of trading. At 12:31 p.m., a selling side circuit breaker known as a sidecar was activated and remained in effect for 5 minutes. A KOSPI sidecar is triggered when the price of KOSPI 200 futures swings by more than 5% and stays at that level for at least 1 minute. The benchmark later paired some losses to close at 4,949, down 5.26% from Friday. The Korean won weakened on Monday with the US dollar rising against it by 1.72% to 1,464.31 at the close. The dollar itself has regained ground with this index ticking higher as expectations of aggressive Fed rate cuts have cooled. Volatility-sensitive assets declined over the past few days since Friday after U.S. President Donald Trump nominated Kevin Warsh, a former Federal Reserve governor, to succeed Jerome Powell as the next Fed chair. This is because the nomination has injected fresh uncertainty into markets. Safe haven and speculative assets took even bigger hits as gold and silver prices plunged sharply in a single session, with silver down 30% and gold down 10%. Bitcoin extended its losses over the weekend, breaking below the $80,000 level, hitting its lowest price range since April 2025. Analysts note that Warsh has long favored shrinking the Fed's balance sheet, a move that could push up long-term interest rates and tighten financial conditions. While Warsh at the Fed was known as a policy hawk who prioritized controlling inflation over supporting economic growth, his recent support for lower interest rates has raised questions over whether he will maintain a tight policy stance or pivot toward monetary easing. Looking ahead, the rest of the week is expected to bring catalysts that could amplify volatility. Investors are closely watching earnings from major AI players such as Alphabet, Google's parent company, and Amazon with a sharp focus on their capital spending plans and profitability outlook. While it may take time for the U.S. Congress to complete the next Fed chair's confirmation process, global investors are being warned to brace for short-term volatility. Park Jun-han, Arirang News.
On the trade front, exports expanded almost 34% on year in January to post their fastest pace of growth in over 4 years, driven by demand for AI-related chips. Our Kim Jun-hong covers the latest findings.
Overseas shipments jumped more than 30% in January from a year earlier, fueled by strong demand for semiconductors. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Resources said Sunday that January exports hit $65.85 billion, up 33.9% from last year. That's the highest January exports total on record, with the country now posting a trade surplus for 12 consecutive months. Rising demand from the expanding global AI market drove semiconductor exports, making chips the clear leader in January's export gains. Semiconductor exports totaled $20.54 billion for the month, more than double the level of 2025 and marking the highest January figure on record. Auto exports climbed 21.7% to $6.07 billion, driven by strong demand for eco-friendly vehicles, marking the second highest January level on record. Meanwhile, petrochemical exports fell 1.5% to $3.52 billion, dragged down by lower prices amid global oversupply. Exports to the United States rose 29.5% to $12.02 billion, marking the highest January level on record. Auto-related shipments were weighed down by tariffs, but triple-digit growth in semiconductor exports helped cushion the impact. Exports to China jumped 46.7% to $13.5 billion, signaling a recovery. Experts link the growth across major export markets as part of the broader AI-led expansion.
As AI demand expands, emerging suppliers, including China, are stepping up investment. This increase in facility investment is also boosting demand for other products and appears to have had a broad impact on exports this month.
Meanwhile, uncertainty over the U.S. economy, along with Washington's plan to reimpose 25% reciprocal and auto tariffs, is clouding the outlook for future export gains. Kim Junong, Arirang News.
In other news, Hanwha Aerospace will supply Norway with its Chunmoo multiple launch rocket system. The contract signed last month with the Norwegian Defense Material Agency is reportedly worth some $922 million. Under the deal, Hanwha Aerospace will supply 16 Chunmoo launches, guided missiles, as well as integrated logistics support. Now, Hanwha had faced fierce competition from US and European rivals, but ultimately secured the deal by offering long-term logistics support and industrial cooperation. Meanwhile, the South Korean trade delegation continues to engage with its counterpart in the US over the latter's decision to raise tariffs. Our An Sang-jin has the latest.
South Korea's Trade Minister Yo Han-gu has been holding a series of meetings with U.S. officials and lawmakers in Washington since Friday. Seoul intensified efforts to avert a threatened tariff hike on automobiles and other key exports to the U.S.
I'm focusing on important stakeholders, including the USTR and the Congress.
His talks are primarily centered on explaining South Korea's legislative process to dispel misunderstandings over delays in passing a special law tied to Seoul's large-scale investment commitments in key U.S. industries, worth up to $350 billion over the long term, agreed last year. He emphasized that the delay should not be misconstrued as a lack of commitment by the Korean government, and added that the ruling Democratic Party has set a target to pass the bill on the implementation of investment commitments by late February or early March.
Ultimately, the U.S. also wants to do business with Korea, so we'll do our best on prioritizing national interest.
Yo had taken over from Industry Minister Kim Jong-kwan, who was dispatched to the U.S. for talks with U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Kim returned home without reaching a conclusive agreement. The high-level talks follow U.S. President Donald Trump's threat to raise tariffs on South Korean automobiles and impose reciprocal tariffs, lifting rates from 15% to 25%. Trump cited delays in South Korea's National Assembly as grounds for the move.
We moved down to 15% for Korea as a show of good faith. They have not executed their part. They haven't been able to get a bill through to do the investment.
The U.S. administration has reportedly begun preparations for the potential 25% tariff, including procedures required for publication in the Federal Register, though the measure has not yet been officially announced. Yo is scheduled to continue talks in Washington through early this week. All eyes are on now whether Seoul and Washington can bridge the differences and prevent an escalation in trade tensions. An Sang-jin, Arirang News.
On the international front, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says trilateral talks among Ukraine, the US and Russia are set to resume this week in Abu Dhabi. Our Ian Jin reports.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said a new round of U.S.-brokered trilateral talks between Ukraine and Russia will take place in Abu Dhabi on February 4th and 5th. President Zelensky posted this on his social media on Sunday, which was when the second round of talks were originally scheduled to begin. He added that Kyiv was ready for a substantive discussion. Neither Moscow nor Washington have confirmed the latest announcement, while top Russian envoy Kirill Dmitriev said on Saturday that he held a, quote, constructive meeting with the U.S. peacemaking delegation in Florida. Negotiators from the three countries held their first trilateral meeting in Abu Dhabi on January 24th, which led to no breakthrough on the key issue of territory. Meanwhile, hours following Zelensky's announcement, Russia resumed attacks on Ukrainian energy infrastructure. A drone attack hit a shuttle bus carrying mine workers in Ukraine's central eastern region. Ukraine's largest private energy firm DTEK and government officials said 12 miners have been killed and at least 15 have been injured. This comes after Russia had agreed to U.S. President Donald Trump's request to suspend attacks on energy infrastructure as Ukraine faces one of the coldest winters in years. On Friday, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov had said that the limited ceasefire would only last until Sunday to provide a good basis for the peace talks. While energy systems were not attacked in recent days, President Zelensky said that Russia was attacking railway infrastructure and other logistics targets. Ukraine says continued attacks on civilians shows that Russia is pursuing a war contrary to peace efforts. Yun-jin, Arirang News.
North Korea has completed the construction of a massive greenhouse farm. According to the regime state media earlier on this Monday, Kim Jong-un attended a related ceremony this past weekend. Kim had been pushing for the construction of a greenhouse farm in the area of Sinuiju, which had suffered severe flood damage in the year 2024. He also reportedly made note of the fact that the completion comes ahead of the 9th Workers' Party Congress, which takes place every 5 years to hammer out mid to long-term policy plans. K-pop has garnered its first ever Grammy Award as the song Golden from K-pop Demon Hunters wins Best Song for Visual Media at the 68th edition of the annual music event. Our culture correspondent Park Gon-woo reports.
After years of nominations and near misses, K-pop finally has its Grammy moment. On Sunday local time, Golden, one of the songs from the Netflix mega hit K-pop Demon Hunters, won Best Song for Visual Media at the Grammy Awards pre-telecast ceremony in Los Angeles. Songwriters including EJ, Teddy, and 24 took home the honor. Performed by the film's fictional girl trio Huntrix using the voices of EJ, Audrey Nuna, and Rayomi, the song marks a historic moment for K-pop, winning a Grammy, ahead of BTS, which has earned 5 Grammy nominations but has yet to secure a win. The victory was widely reported by major global media outlets, including the New York Times, which described the win as ending a drought for the powerhouse global genre. Golden was also nominated in additional categories, including Song of the Year, but ultimately didn't secure another win. Also representing K-pop, Blackpink's Rosé earned 3 nominations for Apatu, her collaboration with Bruno Mars, including Song of the Year and Record of the Year, but didn't win. Song of the Year went to Billie Eilish for Wildflower, while Kendrick Lamar and SZA took home Record of the Year with Luther. Cat's Eye, a girl band created through a collaboration between Hybe and Geffen Records, was nominated in 2 categories, including Best New Artist. Still with multiple nominations and a historic first Grammy win for a K-pop song, experts say it has significance in itself. One expert said K-pop is now in the process of expanding its global reach.
K-pop is mainly driven by fans in their late teens and early 20s, and that generation isn't yet at the center of society. But this is really a matter of time. Awards are decided by people, and as today's K-pop fans grow into those voting bodies, things may change.
The same expert added that throughout the history of cultural arts, new movements are first embraced by younger generations, stressing the need for K-pop to maintain its distinct style while continuing to evolve through collaborations with the current mainstream, just as Rosé did with Bruno Mars. Now, as K-pop Demon Hunters has also been nominated in 2 categories at the upcoming Oscars in March, including Best Original Song, attention is on just how much higher K-pop can go. Up, up, and up. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, a recent forum here in the capital city served to reaffirm the belief that SEOUL has the potential to become a global hub for AI-powered urban innovation. Our Choi Young-eun explains.
Under the theme The Transformation Era Beyond Adoption, AI SEOUL 2026 highlighted tangible changes driven by artificial intelligence in city operations and industrial innovation. Sharing its vision to become a global leader in physical AI, SEOUL unveiled a comprehensive citywide strategy spanning infrastructure, industrial development, and everyday applications.
Technology must ultimately serve people, and the physical AI leading city that SEOUL envisions is a city that creates the warmest change with the coldest technology.
Global CEOs and academic leaders led insight sessions, offering perspectives on how AI is shaping Seoul's future, as the city announced plans to establish a Seoul Physical AI Belt, linking Yangjae AI Tech City for AI talent and companies with the SEOUL robot cluster. By 2030, a central facility will be completed to enable testing and demonstrations of autonomous robots and advanced AI technologies. In line with this vision, Seoul plans to transform downtown areas into large-scale physical AI testbed and invest 100 billion won, or about $70 million by 2030. Among the keynote speakers was Carlo Lotti, director of the MIT Sensible City Lab, who underscores Seoul's potential to emerge as a global hub for AI-powered urban innovation.
Every time I come here, I'm amazed about all the excitement about here people have at AI, how much the city is investing in this. And because of this, I think Seoul can really be an ideal testbed for really testing new technologies and urban futures.
The conference also showcased the outcomes of Seoul's AI transition efforts over the past year, building on the roadmap set out at last year's forum. As Seoul builds smarter infrastructure, some of the innovations seen at this event, from autonomous buses to fire patrol robots, could become part of everyday life over the next decade. Jo Young-eun, Arirang News.
And South Korea woke up to a deep blanket of snow earlier on this Monday morning. Our Easing covers the winter weather.
Overnight snowfall across the country has now largely subsided, with most major roads cleared and traffic moving normally in many areas this morning. Up to 7.3 centimeters of snow fell overnight in Seoul. Yeoncheon in Gyeonggi-do Province saw 7.6 centimeters, while Charwon in Gangwon-do Province received the heaviest accumulation at 17.3 centimeters. In anticipation of the snow, the Ministry of the Interior and Safety activated a Level 1 alert at the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters at 10 p.m. Sunday and began emergency response measures. The Seoul Metropolitan Government also raised its snow response to Level 2, deploying around 1,200 pieces of equipment and 8,000 personnel to clear roads and spread de-icing agents. With the overnight snowfall, transit services were expanded due to a heavier than usual demand for public transportation. Peak rush hour operations on subway lines 2 and 5 through 8 were extended until 9:30 a.m., with 20 additional trains added. City buses also extended their peak schedule services from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and maintained shorter intervals through 9:30 a.m. Korail increased its service with 13 additional trains across 5 lines, including Line 1, the Suin-Bundang Line, and the Gyeonggi-Jungang Line. Officials warned that snow during the early commute could still cause traffic congestion or stranded vehicles in southern regions and are urging drivers to remain cautious. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
This is the world now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. Iran's top leadership has warned that a U.S. attack would ignite a full-scale regional conflict. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei told state media on Sunday that Iran will not be intimidated by U.S. naval deployments and vowed a, quote, strong blow against anyone who attacks Iran. This warning comes as the United States has increased its naval presence in the Middle East after President Donald Trump repeatedly threatened intervention unless Iran agrees to a nuclear deal and stops killing protesters. Meanwhile, Iran's parliament speaker Mohammad Bagher Khalibaf said Iran will designate EU armies as, quote, terrorist groups after the European Union labeled Iran's Revolutionary Guards a terrorist organization last week. He also said authorities will consider expelling EU military attachés. U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson expects to end the partial government shutdown by Tuesday. The Speaker on Sunday expressed confidence that he has the Republican votes to restore funding for most federal agencies once lawmakers return to Washington. The U.S. entered what is expected to be a brief shutdown on Saturday after Congress failed to approve a funding deal as it was out of session by the time the Senate passed the spending package on Friday. Johnson said the House aims to fund all agencies except the Department of Homeland Security by Tuesday. Democrats on Sunday demanded immediate reforms for ICE following 2 fatal shootings of U.S. citizens in Minneapolis. Speaker Johnson promised 2 weeks of good faith negotiations on immigration enforcement once the rest of the government reopens. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer says the former Prince Andrew must testify before a U.S. congressional committee after newly released files detailed more ties to sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Newly released U.S. Justice Department files on Friday revealed emails showing Andrew maintained regular contact with Epstein for more than 2 years after Epstein's child sex crimes conviction. The files also include photos that appear to show Andrew crouching over and touching the waist of a woman lying on the floor with her face blacked out. Separately, the BBC cited a U.S. lawyer saying a woman alleged Epstein sent her to Britain for a sexual encounter with Andrew in 2010 at the Windsor Castle estate. Andrew denies all wrongdoing. Pope Leo XIV is calling for a global Olympic truce as the 2026 Winter Games prepares to open in Italy later this week. The Pope referred on Sunday to an ancient custom when states would lay their arms before and during the Games. He urged all nations currently in conflict to lay down their arms and seek dialogue, describing the upcoming Games as a message of fraternity and hope for a peaceful world. He specifically asked those in positions of authority to make concrete gestures to ease tensions. The Winter Olympics begin this Friday. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
We had a pretty snowy start to February, but snow has mostly stopped now. Seoul had about 7 centimeters of snow and many areas are still covered. As a result, roads are slippery with patches of ice, so today's a day to be extra careful to avoid falling or getting into a traffic accident. Thanks to snowfall, dry weather warnings in the Seoul metropolitan area have been lifted. However, dry weather warnings are still in place in the eastern parts of the country, parts of Jeollanam-do province. The risk of wildfires remains very high due to strong winds blowing, so fire safety is especially important. Seoul and Gyeongju will start off at -7 degrees Celsius, Daejeon and Daegu at -6 degrees Celsius. Highs will rise to 4 degrees in Seoul and Chuncheon, 9 degrees in Busan and Jeju. No major cold spell is expected this week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session, so do stay with us and thank you for now.